Good evening. How are you?
I am Dr. Bryan Deptula, and tonight we're going to talk a little bit about stories of leadership. The idea being that we're going to try to improve your life and your leadership just by a little bit. So when you walk out of here, you can be a little bit better. And the idea is that you had to get yourself here. You had to get yourself to the University of Miami. You had to get yourself to this event tonight. And that, whether or not you know it, is a form of self-leadership. Isn't that amazing? Because the first thing happens is that you must lead yourself first. You have two dates that are really, really important. The first is the day that you come into the world and your natural birth. That's your actual birthday, yeah? The second is what I refer to as a born-on date. That is the date where you as an individual become responsible for outcomes for other individuals besides yourself. Always be creating value. And when you create value for other people, you create opportunity for yourself. Do good for yourself by doing good for others. And that's why leadership starts with me. You must engage in conflict. Conflict is creation. And if you speak truth to people, you communicate with the best intention, you will get their respect. And when you create value for others, you create opportunity for yourself. Be ready for your moment. Because when the moment comes, you either have the fortitude, you have the courage, and you have the skill, and you have the willpower to do it, or you don't. And when people are relying on you, when their lives are literally in your hand, that is not the moment to figure out that you don't have the chops to lead. Leadership is a skill that can be taught, and it can be learned by you and by everyone else. Leading is as natural as breathing. It's not natural as having the motivation to improve the quality of your life and leadership. Find a mentor, do your reading, learn to lead, don't just win. It's not a sacrifice, it's an investment. And you are the most important person that you can invest in. You're a guaranteed bet. I thank you for your time. God bless you. Enjoy your night.
When the Great Recession of 2008 hit, I was a national sales director and corporate trainer in a leisure tourism company. The nation was in crisis, and it was a time of fear. People were losing their jobs, their houses, not being able to feed their families. Businesses were going out of business. As the sales crashed at our own company, I knew it was my responsibility as a leader to do everything in my power to inspire my team to act, to be better, to achieve beyond their wildest imaginations. And I did everything I could think of to motivate them to sell more. Gave them bonuses, incentives, trained them on sales techniques. None of it worked. You see, we missed our financial goals by a lot. And it was devastating to fire friends and colleagues that I cared for deeply. It made me sick to my stomach to know that I had failed as a leader. I realized that even though we had trained them to sell, something was missing. They knew they were responsible for hitting their own goals, but either didn't care or know that they could make a difference in the lives of others. Prior to crisis and change smacking us in the face, as it always does, we had not prepared them to lead. We had not invested the time, effort, and resources into making them leaders, helping them see themselves as being able to make that difference. A failure of this magnitude was an identity shock. It marked a transition from the old way I saw myself as a leader in relation to others to a new apprehension of who I was and who I could become as my future best leader self. That's what an identity shock looks like. Now you see, developing leaders is so important. I decided to dedicate my life to it. I chose to sacrifice my career, my corner office, my six-figure salary to go back to school to get an MBA and a PhD in leadership. I made it my mission to make every student, child, and worker transformed into tomorrow's leader. And I've learned a lot along the way. I believe that every single person, each of you, can become a leader by focusing on the three pillars of leader development. Being, which is our leader identity, how we see ourselves as leaders. knowing, which is our intellect, what we know and how we think about leading, and doing, which are instances where we practice being a leader worth following. I believe that leaders are born to be made. See, we are not born a blank slate, rather an unfinished piece of leader art that takes time, effort, and dedication to become a masterpiece. Surely there are people that are trait-like and have genes that make them more likely to lead. Things like extroversion, proactive personality, a willingness to challenge conventional wisdom, and even breaking a few rules. But if you don't have these traits or these genes, does that mean that you're not going to be a leader? Of course not. And if you do have these traits and these genes, does that mean that you're absolutely going to be a leader? Of course not. You see, we can tell you all day long about the traits and the genes of these great past historical leaders, but even in telling you what to do, how to do it, when to do it, to be like them, if you do not see yourself as a leader, you will never attempt to practice what you have learned. See, because developing leaders is a growth process, where from a very early age as children, we form mental models about who we are as leaders, what leadership is, to being at a place where we form our identities and distinguish ourselves as leaders from others. To as we age and we start to engage as workers, we begin to fulfill collective purposes. And then we advance at some point to become expert leaders, to where we integrate the various aspects of our identity and pair them with different approaches to leading so that we become more effective leaders in more contexts. Because expert leaders think critically, creatively, and strategically. They coordinate and collaborate with others to get work done and to create value. There's no magic moment when that happens or whether you will or will not advance to certain stages. We're all trying to be better. See, I get the distinct privilege of watching this happen every day of my life. A few years ago, my beautiful wife and I had 2 amazing children. And that comes with the responsibility of growing with them, alongside them, to be good and decent human beings. And if we can do that, then it's very likely they will also become great leaders. We are intentional about creating instances where the process of identity formation and thinking as a leader can begin. So I started applying the universal principles of leader development to my children. One fall day, we were out with some friends, and we communicated a vision of what the holidays could be like if we had the great pumpkin. And we gave him a goal of finding a pumpkin for his friend. And you see, there it is. That's the moment my son became a leader. He turned without me cueing him. He grabbed his friend's hand, and away they went to the pumpkin patch. And you can see that his friend is willingly following, because it takes a follower to make a leader. And he grants him the role of leader in that relationship. Each of these moments is a teachable moment, a moment for reflection where we can mentor and guide someone. And I sat next to my son, and I had the old dad talk, and I said, "Son, in that moment, you were a leader." You know. And he's all charged up, he's fired up. I said, "You understand, it's just that moment that makes you a leader. That's all it takes." And I encouraged him to integrate that aspect of himself throughout his life, because that was a major identity shock that will help him progress forward. And he's all excited. And in this grand, glorious moment where I put years of education and consulting into practice, into being a parent, And he's looking at me and he says, Dad. And I said, yes, son. And I'm expecting him to give me an epiphany. He says, I have to pee. He said it. He said it. Now, I am fully aware that at 3 years old, he has not cemented a leader identity. The point is, as parents, my wife and I engage our children with their environment in the role of leader time and again, time and again. And as they age, being a leader won't be something that they do. It will be who they are. Now, when my children become students, it's up to our education system to create and deliver curriculum that is designed to cultivate their capacity to lead, to allow them to take command of their leadership journey, and to surround them with a support network where they get instantaneous developmental feedback from people who want to see them improve the quality of their lives and the lives of others. And when those students become employees and they join our workforce, it is up to our executives, our organizations, our human resource professionals, managers, to honor their motivation to lead, not suppress it because they lack age, experience, and wisdom. They need to create opportunities for them to practice leading so they gain experience with age and become wise leaders. And we need to create gaming scenarios where they can try and fail over and over and over and again and again and again without fear of losing their job. But you see, we don't do that. We say things like, if you want it done right, you need to do it yourself. Now, you've said that, I've said that, and from a leader development perspective, it's fundamentally wrong to say. Because every time that you do something yourself, you skip an opportunity to teach someone else how to do it, and you fail to lead, and they fail to understand what being developed as a leader is. You rob them of the opportunity to say something like, I am a leader, follow me, and for others to say, I accept you as a leader. Now, I believe the greatest gift that you can give someone is to see within them the leader that they cannot see for themselves. Investing yourself into another human being happens in moments that you don't even see coming. One day, my son and I were foraging for salmon berries. Now, salmon berries grow in bushes, and we were in Alaska, and these bushes are about 5 feet tall. Well, I guess I'm a little taller than that. So about 5 feet 9 or so, okay? And he's still around 2.5 feet, and I'm foraging for berries, and I'm giving him all these berries, and we're eating it up, and berries everywhere, right? Great. And when I could see no more berries, I said to him, okay, son, it's time to move on. And he's staying, and he's pointing up, and he's saying, berries, berries, berries. And I was sure he was wrong, but at his persistence, I turned to him to tell him we needed to go, and he keeps pointing, berries, berries, berries. And I get down, and right in front of my eyes are about 50 juicy berries. Literally the low-hanging fruit. You see, we can learn from people of all ages if we just allow them to lead us, allow them to share with us their perspective. Looking down from where I was, I could see no berries, but from Gordon's view, the bush was full. Here I was thinking I was leading him. Turns out, he was leading me. And as we develop them, we grow and advance in our own leadership. We transform those skills in who we are, and we use them in our professional and our personal lives to lead our families, in our education systems, in our religious institutions, in our PTAs, our little leagues, any group which we are a part. And the payback to society is huge. Why? Because a rising tide lifts all ships. People who learn to lead make everyone around them perform better, believe that they can achieve. Imagine the power that we could have, how much better the world would be if we drew out the leader from within. Every person of all ages, cultures, ethnicities, at every level of every organization. I've learned a lot in that decade. I research leadership. I teach it to my students as a professor. I created a leader development company with my wife. I see leaders being made every day in students, my children, family members, community, nonprofits. Leaders matter. And if I can do it, you can do it too. Start by making yourself a leader, and then bring someone along up next to you in their leadership journey. You see, because you matter, and you can lead, and your leadership matters. And the next time you see an aspiring leader, I want you all to repeat after me. Are you all ready? Can you repeat after me? Yes. Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay. Here's what I want you to say to those people. Leading is something everyone can do. I am a leader. And so are you. Thank you. I want you to understand when you're getting career support versus another type of support. And if you're not getting the type of support that you need to ask for it. And what I've just given you is a tool. That tool is a conversation outline. It's an expectation that you will give unto your mentors and you will use for yourself years down the road when you are mentoring others and somebody comes into you and they say, hey, I'm in a position, I need to actually consider moving on. What do you suggest? In that moment, you know you have at your disposal these career support functions. And I'm going to give you an example of how this manifests in real world. When I was working in industry, I used to work for a company that ran and sold and operated spring break and summer break trips. That's right. That's right. I used to live in Mexico, Acapulco, for about 10 years, 3 months a year for every year for about 10 years, which is a fantastic gig to have, right? At some point along the line, I met my wife, who is now a mother of my children. I love her dearly. We've been together for about 12 years. And we started having conversations about what our life looked like in 10 years or 20 years, just like I did with you. And we decided that within that industry, we had taken our journey as far as it could go. And I was really, really enjoying the benefits of that. Travel, making a six-figure salary, enjoying that really great. And it wasn't fulfilling me any longer. So I went and I joined an MBA program, which is how I actually ended up in Beta Gamma Sigma, ultimately. And I ended up looking at some work by a lady named Kathy Cram. And Kathy Cram is the world's foremost scholar on mentoring. She's down the road from me at Boston University. I was at Suffolk University at the time. Now, Kathy Cram literally wrote the book that everybody cites when they talk about mentoring. In fact, you should look her up. I encourage you to do so. She's an amazing person. So I'm naive and I don't even know what it's like to mentor or be mentored really, but I wanted to study. I wanted to learn how I could help people because I was a former sales director and I found myself trying to coach people up, but it wasn't enough. I found myself talking with people, but it was never enough. So I wanted to be the best mentor and best human being that I could be. So I wanted to go get a PhD. And so I said, well, who better to call than the person who's studying the thing that I want to study? She was the person that I wanted to be like. So now I had no idea that Kathy Cram was world famous and I just knew she was down the road. So I called her up and I said, hey, Kathy, I want to get a PhD. I'm an executive at this organization. I'm in my MBA program and I'm considering a career change. And she says, well, what are you doing on Wednesday? You can come by my office and we'll have a conversation. Now here's the lady who almost every professional and every person who writes an academic paper on mentoring cites. And she says, come on by Wednesday. So I scooted over. Oh my God, yeah, let's do it. And there's Kathy Cram sitting in front of me, telling me with all humility that she was learning as much as I was learning in that conversation. She's giving me guidance about how to accelerate my career and leave my past behind. And then she's telling me that I'm enriching her life as well just by sharing with her why I wanted a mentor and why I wanted to change my career. And ultimately, I left my job, said to my wife, I said, hey, I got something to tell you. And she said, you're going to go get your PhD, aren't you? I said, yeah, I am. I said, but you have to understand what that means. She said, yeah, I know. I'm going to go get a job. Now, when you go get a PhD, they pay you about $18,000. That's literally not enough to pay your rent. So you have to make great sacrifice in order to become the person that you want to be. And we did that. We did that willfully. And I did that with the support of people along the way, and I've received much love and coaching. Because what I find is that when people are able to give you career support, they can change the shape of your life, but it's not enough to tell somebody to change their career. You need to help them in other ways. And the other way that you help them is through psychosocial support. Because you tell somebody to leave a six-figure job to go make $18,000 and eat off the value menu for the next 5 years, you got to tell you something. That's a big change. And so you need them to feel good about themselves.